right, so we're on the back of page 3. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're trying to find the in behavior. Okay, in behavior, you're going to use the chart at the top of page 3, okay, in order to help you. So you can either do one of two things. You can either graph this and tell me what the in behavior is from the graph, or you can memorize the little chart that's on the back of page 3. Up to you. Doesn't matter which one you want to do. So when we talk about in behavior, we're saying that if we stand at 0, 0, and we look to the left, what's happening to our y values? Okay, so on number 1, if we graph that, we're going to get something that looks like this. X to the third. Okay, so if we're in this graph, okay, if we stand at 0, 0 and we look to the left, what's happening to our y values? They're going down, so this is going to be negative infinity. So as x is approaching negative infinity, what's happening to our y values? Our y values were going down, okay? And the way I can do that from the chart is if I look at my leading coefficient and it's positive, and my exponent is an odd term, then I'm going to use, look at your chart, if I look at leading coefficient is positive, and it's an odd term, then as x is approaching negative infinity, it's going to be negative infinity. As x is approaching positive infinity, I'm also going to be approaching positive infinity.
Oh my god.
That's an arrow. Okay? So this is talking about your in behavior. So we know that the graph looks like this, right? Like when we graph it, it looks like this, roughly. Okay? If I'm standing right here and I look to my left, what's happening to my y values? Okay, so that's negative infinity right here. If I'm standing at 0, 0 and I look to the right, what's happening? It goes positive infinity. It's right here. Okay? On number 2, go ahead and take your graphing calculator and graph that. And tell me what happens when x is approaching negative infinity and x is approaching positive infinity. Take a moment, try that one. All right, so if we take this and we plug it into our graph, okay, this is what our graph's going to look like. So which one does that match up with? B. Okay, so this is going to be the graph B. So as x was approaching negative infinity, so as x is going this way, what's happening to our y values? They're getting bigger, so we're going to positive infinity. As x is approaching positive infinity, what's happening to our y values? Okay? So if you wanted to memorize the chart, what you would look at is if it is a negative coefficient with an odd power, then it's going to follow the rules that are on the back of page 3. Okay? On number 3, you can plug that in, and obviously you're going to get the graph A, okay, as a result. So if I look to my left for that graph, if I look to my left, what's happening to my y values? It's going to negative infinity. So as x is approaching negative infinity, y is approaching negative infinity as well. As x is approaching positive infinity, what's happening to our y values? Still going to negative infinity. Okay? And you can see that from the fact that instead of having to graph it, you can look at the leading coefficient, because it's going to be negative, and it's going to have an even power, because if I multiply all these out, I'm going to have x to the 4th as my leading coefficient. So it's going to have this as my in behavior. Yes, it is a sad face. At the bottom of the back of page 3, it says for us to put it in standard form. So that means that I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to multiply things out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write this x minus 2 times, because this exponent is raised to the 2nd power. So when I multiply this, I'm going to get x times x. That's going to give me x squared. X times negative 2, that's going to give me negative 2x. 1 times x is going to give me a positive x. 1 times negative 2 is going to give me a negative 2. I'm going to combine my like terms. And then I'm going to multiply by that x minus 2 that I have left over. So you see right here where I was like, all right, there's 2 of them. I'm going to bring it down here and I'm going to multiply by that. So I'm going to distribute. X squared times x is going to give me x to the 3rd power. Negative x times x is going to give me negative x squared. Negative 2 times x is going to give me negative 2x. And I'm going to multiply the other numbers. So x squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. Negative x times negative 2 is going to give me positive 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is going to give me positive 4. So all I've done is distribute. That's all I've done. Then I'm going to combine my like terms. So as you can see, these 2 things have the same term. These 2 things have the same term. And then everything else doesn't have anything else matching. So this is going to be x cubed. Negative x squared minus 2x squared is negative 3x squared. Negative 2x plus 2x is 0, so we don't have to write anything down. And then we have that plus 4. Go to faculty and staff. So if I put this on page 4 into my graphing calculator, okay, this is what I get. In order to find the zeros, you're going to look at where it crosses the x-axis. So this is going to be at negative 1.752. So that's going to be a 0. I've also got an x-intercept at 0.432. So this is just where it crosses the x-axis, right? For my y-intercept, that's where it crosses the y-axis. So that's going to be along this line. So where does it cross? At 0, 0. So my y-intercept is going to be 0. Okay? For in behavior, that's what we just did. We're standing at 0, 0. And if we look to the left, what's happening to our y values? They're going to positive infinity. If we look to our right, what's happening to our y values? They're also going to positive infinity. Again, sometimes on your test, this might be written out as f of x instead of y, but I want you to see both ways. Okay? For extrema, that's just like a fancy word. Somebody asked me if it was Spanish, but it's just a fancy word for max and min. Okay? Alright, so we've got a couple of maxes and mins on here. Let's take a look at them. We've got one right here, and one right here. So down here, this bottom one, is that an absolute min or a local min? Absolute min. Okay, so there's going to be an absolute min. And I would use my graphing calculator for this because I'm not going to calculate it. So that's going to be negative 1.207, comma, negative 5.453. Okay. This one right here, this is a local minimum. And it's at 1, comma, negative 1. We do have one more extreme value. It's up here for this old person standing. That's going to be a local max. And the number for that is 0.207, comma, 0.203. Yeah, there's a lot. So I know it's been a minute since we've seen problems like this. This is the bottom of page 4. So I just kind of want to revisit this just in case. So what you're going to do here, in order to combine like terms, you need to simplify the radicals before you can combine like terms. So factors of 20 are going to be 4 and 5. What two numbers will make 4? 2 and 2. Remember, you can only exit the radical if you have an exit buddy. So that means I can pull one of these 2's and put it out front. That's going to give me -8 square root of 5. Over here, if I break this down, I'm going to have 4 and 20. If I break that down more, I'm going to have 5 and 4. Break these 4's down. Remember, I can only exit if I got a buddy. So I'm going to pull a 2 out here and another 2 out. So that's going to give me 8 radical 5. Over here, I'm going to have 9 and 5. I'm going to have that 3 exit the radical. So I have this. So now what you're going to notice is that all of my terms have a 5 underneath the radical. So that means that I can combine like terms outside of the radical. What's -8 plus 8? Those cancel out. So what am I left with? That's it. All right, so on number 5, it's got this equation, and then it tells us to solve, right? Well, this one is already in factored form. So can't I just take each of these parentheses and set them equal to 0?
Yeah, you can.
If it's already in factored form, make your life easy, set them all equal to 0 and solve. So on this first one, I'm going to divide by 3. And x is going to equal 0. Over here, I'm going to subtract 7. And I'm going to get x equals -7. Over here, I'm going to add 15 to both sides. And then divide by 7. So x is going to equal 15 over 7 or 2 point something, right? So these would be my 3 factors. Right, so on number 4, when you distribute this, you're going to say -2 root 5 times 1. That's going to give you -2 root 5. And then over here, you're going to take everything that's on the outside and multiply it by what's on the outside over here. So that's going to give me +4. On the inside, I'm going to take 5 and multiply it by 5. So that's going to give me +25. So when you break down 25, you're going to get 5 is the square root of 25. So I can pull that out and I can multiply it by that 4 out front. So 4 times 5 is going to give me 20. And I'm just going to bring down the other term.
So -2 over 5 plus 1.
-2 root 5 plus 20. You could also see this written as 20 minus 2 root 5. It just kind of depends on your test.
Oh.